Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So even more exciting spoilers are happening, and it's pretty early on in the day. We just got a big flood of spoilers, and including a really exciting one that I think has a lot of deck potential. And yeah, let's jump into it. Let's talk about the different directions that you can go with Yenna. I'm gonna go with Yenna, not Yenna. I'm gonna go with Yenna. Redtooth Regent, a 4/4 elf noble that costs 2 green and a white legendary, I should say. This can be your commander, a very exciting commander it can be. Pay 2, tap. Choose target enchantment you control that doesn't have the same name as another permanent you control. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it isn't legendary. The token is an aura, untap Yenna, Redtooth Regent, then scry 2, activate only as a sorcery. So a lot going on here. I mean, I was going to say it's a run-on sentence, but there's a period or two in there. But it's a very, 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 very giant block of text with a couple of different iterations, again, of things that you can do, but also just things to consider. First up, so again, you need to choose an enchantment that you control that doesn't have the same name as something else. So essentially, obviously, in Commander, it's a singleton format, so you're not going to have cards with the same name, except for, well, tokens that are copies of things, which is what this makes, obviously. So essentially, this is like, hey, I can get you going. I can make a token copy of something, but I can't duplicate it further after that first one. Now, there are ways to use and abuse that quite a bit. We'll talk about that here in a bit. Next up, though, the token copy of it isn't legendary, which is quite spicy. And we'll talk about a particular card that I'm definitely going to be, well, encouraging you to consider with this one. Because yes, if you've got a legendary enchantment in play and you're like, well, okay, I can only have one copy of that anyways, this changes that rule where it's like, no. Now you can get a legendary, non-legendary copy of it. And again, there's ways to use and abuse that as well. On top of that, very specifically, if you are copying an aura, and again, we're getting brand new auras from this set as well, at least brand new aura, I guess tokens with that, the rolls essentially. So we are getting, other kinds of auras, but, we've got old kinds of auras that are also very good. Ones that, enchant creatures, ones that are maybe curses and enchant players, and then also ones that maybe can benefit you by enchanting, say, a land or something else. But when you do that again, first of all, you get to scry 2, which is nice, but more importantly, you get to untap this commander so you can do this again on something else. Again, you can't just keep copying that same thing. Now, if you've got a way to maybe get rid of that thing that you just made a copy of, you could just kind of keep doing that again and again and again, potentially. We'll talk about some ways to work with that, potentially. Again, only as a sorcery. Oh, wizards, I don't really know why you have to throw those things on there. I personally don't think that this is too overly powerful. It's a very powerful effect, but would it be overly powerful if it was, like, at any speed? No, I don't believe so. I typically don't like that text there, wizards, and this is just another case of me not liking that text. Now, does it ruin the commander? Absolutely not. Again, the potential of this commander, there's a lot of potential for it. I'm excited to see this kind of different direction for a commander. It's kind of like enchantment clone, not tribal, I wouldn't say, but, I guess there are ways to get even further down into making more and more copies of something. Not with this commander. You have to make that one initial copy, but after that, there's potential ways to make even more copies of things. And yeah, again, I think it's a very exciting one. It's one that could see play just in an Enchantress build, and it's one card in the 99, again, giving you extra value, maybe taking value out of, Constellation cards, getting even extra value out of that. Yeah, untap effects are going to work great in that. You've got a ton of untap effects, both green and white. But yeah, on this episode, let's talk about the budget buys and the pricier picks. Again, in this quick take, let's talk about those cards that are within my budget for the budget buys, cards outside of my budget, the pricier picks, cards that are more than $1, cards that are less than $1. All these cards, though, you will find in a link in the description below, so make sure you check that out. Now, with all that said, let's jump into first with the budget buys. And we're going to start things off with Wild Growth, an example of a great aura to consider for a deck like this. In fact, a lot of your ramp for this deck could be, you just focus a lot really heavily on, well, land ramp, but also, land ramp cards, you know what I mean? Cards that ramp your lands. An aura that costs a single green mana enchant land. Whatever enchant land is set for mana, it's controlled as additional green. This kind of a card, like Fertile Ground types of cards, can be fantastic by making so your lands tap for even more. And with your commander, again, you just pay 2 to tap and make a token copy of this, put it on another one of your lands, your commander untaps, and yeah, you just kind of like only had to pay basically 1 mana overall to do that, because again, you just got an extra mana out of another land the next time you tap that one. You also got to scry 2, and of course there's even bigger auras as well. I can't remember the ones they're called. Overgrowth is one, I believe, that costs 3 and it's green essentially, the additional. So yeah, that's basically free. That's just a free copy effect for that one. So things get pretty out of hand when it comes to getting more and more auras in play, getting more and more copies of auras in play. You might want to consider some indestructible lands in there. I think Darksteel Citadel would be one of them. But yeah, one's essentially that your opponents can't mess with, because if you start building up a lot of auras on a particular land, that might get dealt with, or just, yeah, go wide on that. Go to a couple different ones. Moving on, Sithis Harvest Hand. Make sure you're considering enchantment creatures, especially one like this. Again, this one is a legendary creature, but again, our brand new commander says, you know, let's get around that. Sithis Harvest Hand is a 1/2 nymph that costs green-white. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 1 life, draw a card. Yeah, very, very, very potent. An incredible enchantress. It's a great commander itself, but of course, great enchantress in the 99 of enchantress decks as well. And this one says, you know what? Again, normally you wouldn't be able to make a copy of this, but with this commander, you can make a token copy of it that is not legendary. And now all of a sudden, every single time you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. Absurd. The amount of value you can get out of something like this is absolutely absurd. Next up, Enchantress Presence. Of course, we got other examples of Enchantress effects like this one that are fantastic. Yet another enchantment. Whenever you cast enchantment spell, draw a card. So this one is hard to deal with. Again, this one is one that you say, oh yeah, a creature, sure, a Wrath of God will take that out. This one, again, an enchantment. Not all those, creature-based wraths are going to be able to take these out. So yeah, basically, another effect, a lot of Enchantress effects, especially the ones that are very powerful with this commander, are going to be the ones that, again, are enchantments themselves, whether, again, like Sithis, that's an enchantment creature, or this, which is just an enchantment, so you can make extra copies and get even more cards drawn out of this. Yeah, the value can be pretty absurd. Speaking of absurd value, Sigil the Empty Throne. There's so many great enchantments out there that can just be, well, value engines, but also just game ending like this one, and getting an extra copy of this is just insane. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you get a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. Having 2 of these in play, now every single time you cast an enchantment spell, again, just a simple, again, wild growth potentially. Just a 1-mana enchantment spell. Cool. All right. I got 8 power, 8 flying power across 2 bodies. What's not to love about that? Pretty absurd. Next up, and this is where I need you to really consider this kind of card. Growing Ranks. Okay, so populate type effects are insane with this kind of a commander when you get the right combinations of cards in play, I should say. Beginning of your upkeep, populate. A very simple enchantment for 2 Selesnya. Selesnya, again, making an extra copy of this means that, hey, beginning my upkeep, I'm going to populate twice. And of course, there's other kinds of cards that cannot be populated as well. This is a good example of an enchantment one. We'll talk about another one here in a little bit. One of my favorite cards ever in Magic. Anyways, this is a great card. Again, just think about Sithis, right? We make a copy of Sithis. That is a token that is not legendary. Again, we can't make more of those because our commander says, well, you have the same name, so I can't make an extra copy of you. That being said, populate effects will help you do that. So again, let's say that you've got your token copy of Sithis. Let's say that you've got your token copy of Growing Ranks as well. You've got 2 of those in play. All of a sudden, on your upkeep, you populate twice, make 2 token copies extra of Sithis. Now you've got 4 Sithis in play. Every single time you cast a single enchantment, you gain 4 life, draw 4 cards. So yeah, cast your Wild Growth, which draws you into 4 more cards, which casts another one. It's absolutely absurd the amount of value that you can get once you get set up with an Enchantress deck like this. Speaking of getting set up, Seeker of Skybreak. Unfortunately, not an enchantment creature. Still a very effective one with this commander. A simple 2/1 for 2 mana. Tap on tap target creature. Again, yeah, our commander can just inherently untap if we're activating it and targeting auras, and that can be very, very beneficial. But when we want to target, maybe some of our heavier hitting ones that, aren't auras, hey, having some extra untap effects can really help us just keep things going. Again, untap our commander, pay 2 mana into it, do it again. Having untap effects like this, or just kind of mass untap effects, which we've got access to plenty of them. I think Vitalize is a great one. A great low to the ground one, just 1 mana untap our entire army can be fantastic. And of course, can work really well with Mana Dorks, one that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Next up, though, Boon Satyr. So this is where I might need some help, okay? So Boon Satyr is not an aura inherently. It is an enchantment creature. We can make a copy of it. That being said, it has Bestow, which is an old-ish mechanic from Theros. And basically, when you cast it for its Bestow cost, it's an aura with enchant creature. It becomes a creature again if it's not attached to a creature. So essentially, hey, this is going to be an aura. You put it on one of your creatures, right? You can use your commander to make a copy of it. And because it's an aura, your commander untaps. That being said, this is where I need help from you. Hey, if I'm making a copy of it while it's an aura, does it have to come into play attached to a creature? I assume. Can I just choose not to have it attached to a creature? or do I just attach to a creature? There's a reason for this because, well, there could be some shenanigans going on, of course. Yeah, with this kind of a commander. So with that in mind, let's move on to the pricier picks. Again, cards outside of my budget, cards that be within your budget, so make sure you're considering, well, all of these. Anyways, regardless, let's jump into the first one with Ashnod's Altar. So this is where things get a little crazy again when you're considering those kinds of auras and maybe bestow creatures and making copies with your commander. You probably can do some pretty crazy things. I mean, I'm sure you can have a setup that even just works, even if, you know, Boonsater has to come in and attach something, which I'm assuming it does. That being said, if you got a way to make creature tokens, maybe when you're making these auras or whatnot, and it can come into play, attach to it, cool. Then you can just say, oh, okay, I'll sacrifice that creature. I'll sacrifice, you know, the Boonsater token that I made, essentially, and just keep getting more and more copies of that. You know, untapping your commander, doing it again. I probably should have said what Ashnod's Altar does. Sacrifice creature, add colors. So again, it pays for that mana and potentially then some, you know, for what your commander's ability is. So yeah, again, there could be some probably crazy combo potential with this if you really want to go in that direction. But yeah, maybe not the direction you want to go. When it comes to crazy potential, though, Doubling Season. Yeah, this Parallel Lives, Owner Procession, all those types of cards are absurd with this kind of a commander. Doubling Season is an incredibly expensive card, even though it keeps getting reprinted every now and then, and it doesn't really matter. It's always going to be expensive because it just sees play in so many decks. This one doubles up your tokens and doubles up your counters. Basically, the thing you really care about with this commander, obviously, is doubling up the tokens. So now every single time you activate your commander's ability, instead of just getting one of those tokens, you are getting two. And yeah, two of each of those is going to be pretty absurd. And of course, that really works well with Populate as well. So yeah, keep that in mind. Speaking of Populate, Song of the World Soul. Wizards, please reprint this. One of my favorite cards of all time in Magic. I absolutely love this. An enchantment for 6 mana in total whenever you cast a spell, Populate, which again means that you create a token that's a copy of a creature token you control. And yeah, there's going to be some pretty crazy things that happen. Again, you get that non-legendary token copy of Sithis in play, and all of a sudden, you're casting spells and you're populating again and again and again, making an army of Enchantress Sithises that just take over the game for you by gaining you a ton of life and drawing an absurd amount of cards. So yeah, being able to make an extra copy of this with your commander is amazing. Again, whenever you cast a single spell, you populate twice then. And of course, if you've got ways to maybe turn your enchantments into creatures, then you can do some crazier things while, like, maybe even just, you know, populating a Song of the World Soul, you know, creature token populating. So yeah, just keep doing that again and again and again. I even built an entire deck around that. But yeah, some crazy things can be happening with that. Next up, let's just really talk about some ones that can be some really heavy hitters in the pricier picks. Slightly outside of my budget, just 22 cents out. 0-2, Dryad, Sanctum Weaver. It's an enchantment creature, so you can make a copy of it. Tap at X mana of any one color, X number of enchantments you control. Yeah, gross, insane. Again, you're going to be just flooding the board with enchantments as it is. You're going to be copying them with your commander. Again, with the auras, you can just copy again and again and again, essentially. And all of a sudden, you can tap for like 20 mana with one of these. You make a second one, tapping for another 20. And of course, again, with those untap effects, those vitalized type effects, yeah, you can get an absurd amount of mana and just win. Probably like, you know what Eddie would probably do is a Helix Pinnacle win with that. Could be quite fun as well. Moving on, Aura Shards. Aura Shards is a very, very deadly card. Whenever a creature comes in a plane under your control, you may destroy a target artifact or enchantment. So, very simple, very effective. All of a sudden, yeah, you make an extra copy of this. Now, one creature comes in a play, you're destroying two things. And again, if you've got those enchantment creatures like I just talked about, like Sanctum Weaver or Sithis, and you're making a copy of them with your commander, all of a sudden, yeah, you get one into play. You just paid 2 mana for that. And now you are destroying 2 artifacts and enchantments, or 2 and/or artifacts and enchantments. You know what I mean. Absolutely gross. Your opponents won't have any artifacts or enchantments lying around ever again. Next up, Eidolon of Blossoms. This is crazy good with this commander. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. So Constellation is definitely something to consider with this. Yeah, Enchantress style effects are great. You know, again, like Sithis. Like, hey, whenever you cast an enchantment, cool, that's great. This is going to be slightly more impactful, though, with Constellation, because it doesn't require a cast. It's just when those enchantments enter the battlefield. So that includes those token copies that you are making with your commander and with populate effects as well. So, yeah, get a second copy of this. I mean, first of all, draw 2 cards with that. Congratulations, have fun with that. But now you've got 2 of them in play, and whenever any of your enchantments enter the battlefield, you are drawing 2 cards. If you can populate this token of Eidolon of Blossoms, even crazier. So yeah, things can get absolutely out of hand. Speaking out of hand, yeah, Smothering Tithe. Hey, it's a good card. Who knew? Yeah, basically an opponent draws a card. They can play 2. If they don't, because that's an absurd amount, you make a treasure token. You're going to get an absurd amount of mana. Hey, what's even worse for your opponents than 1 Smothering Tithe? 2. You have 2. Maybe even more. But yeah, being able to do some crazy things with this, yeah, you're going to be able to take over the game in absolutely no time. Treasures are broken. Anyways, Mirari's Wake. Another great card to consider. Creatures you control get +1/+1. So a nice effect to double that up again. +2/+2 for our army. Cool, very cool. On top of that, oh yeah, by the way, whenever you tap a land for mana, add an extra 1 mana of any type that land produced. So again, you already probably have these auras, right, on these lands. And now you're saying, let's just make them even more impactful. Let's just do even more with that. Make a second copy of this. Double up, the power for your creatures. Double up the power of your lands. What's not to love? Speaking of which, Nyx Bloom Ancient. Gross. Absolutely gross. 5/5 Trampling Elemental for 7 mana. If you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. Any permanent for mana. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, easily make a token copy of this to do ×3, then ×3 again. And of course, if you can populate that even more, have fun with all that math. But yeah, basically, you're going to end up with lands that tap for an absurd amount each, and then you just win with your giant, massive amounts of mana, amounts of drawing, amounts of playing your entire deck, most likely. Have fun with that. Speaking of fun, Unnatural Growth, another great 1/2 copy. Unnatural Growth is an enchantment for 5 mana. 1 green, 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 green. Very, very restrictive casting cost. That being said, you're in green. You've got plenty of ways to fix your mana. You only have 2 colors anyways. You're fine. Beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. Yup. So every single combat, not just your own, number 1. Number 2, make a copy of this. All of a sudden, again, even if you just had like a 2-power creature, right? You go to combat. Okay, 2 doubles of 4. Doubles again because I got a token copy of this. And all of a sudden, my 2-power creature and toughness as well, 2/2 turns into a 4/4, then an 8/8. So your tiniest creatures can become absolutely massive, monstrous threats. Your opponents aren't going to last very long with that. And that is all I have for you in the budget buys and the price of your picks. Yeah, this is an absolutely crazy cool commander. I like the design. I do like that little restriction where it's like you can't just keep making the same copy of the same enchantment. That I do like that. Again, there are ways around that potentially, with populate effects for those creatures, so you can do that. I do like that little untap effect that you get when you're doing with auras. Again, there's some crazy things you can probably do with that as well. I don't like the activations with sorcery. I don't think it ruins the commander. I just don't think it's really all that necessary. Wizards doesn't like doing things at instant speed sometimes. Everyone's got their own opinion on that end. But regardless, let me know your opinion on this commander. What do you think about the cards that I pointed out? Are you interested in this commander? Yeah, make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. And make sure to stay tuned to this channel for more exciting quick takes and spoilers coming out. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.